All right, welcome everybody.
Good evening and welcome to the April edition of the Poetry Playhouse Open Mic. This will be our last Zoom open mic until September. We'll be concentrating on in-person events such as our Back Porch series. So if you're on our mailing list, keep an eye out for things that are going to be happening there. I wanted, before we get started, to do a shameless plug for my new book, Tubables, from Poetry Playhouse Publications. Jules will put info about it in the chat. There's a terrific drawing, illustration by Toronto artist Anna Vanessa Latzer. Those are dinosaurs putting words through an old-fashioned tub, hence tubbable, and hanging him on the clothesline. So that should be an indication that the book tends towards the quirky and the strange and has a lot of dictionary poems and so forth. And I'm just going to read one poem from it in lieu of the eclipse we had a couple of weeks ago, called I Stole an Eclipse. I stole an eclipse today, rode a snapping turtle all the way to San Luis Obispo, climbed an agave stalk taller than an oak, higher than the campanile, held up the sun with my BB gun, put it in my back pocket, ate a tangerine, kicked a soccer ball to the moon, listened to the music of the spheres, watched as it ricocheted throughout the galaxy, rode vampire fish sailing celestial seas, hummed Le Clair de Lune, and composed a sonnet. So that is Tubables. Anyway, we're gathered here tonight actually to talk about Mercury Heartlink Press, and we have the editor and publisher of Mercury Heartlink here, Pamela Warren Williams. And Pamela took over, I should say, got the press going again, revived the press a couple of years ago, and is doing a fantastic job. She's down in Silver City in the southwestern corner of New Mexico, which is a really great town if you get a chance to visit. And the press was started, I don't know, quite a few years ago by Stuart Warren. He was a very good friend of ours. And we put on Jules and I put on quite a few events with him. And he sadly passed away in 2019 from cancer. He did ask us to do a final book of his, Feeling the Distance, and from Poetry Playhouse Publications. And then Pamela worked with us on an anthology of poems that friends wrote on his behalf, and offerings for the journey. And those, those are two volumes that I still cherish. And then Pamela herself wrote this terrific book, You Always Near the Stuart Poems, and she published it with Mercury Heartlink. So all three of these books, whether or not you knew Stuart, all three are very well worth reading. So anyway, we wanted to start with a short conversation with Pamela about the press and about, where it came from, what the direction it's moving is. And then she's going to introduce several of the authors, of the Mercury Heartlink authors, who will read a few poems. And then we'll be, of course, getting to our open mic. So Pamela, thank you so much for joining us, and it's a great pleasure to see you. Yeah.
Mine too, John. Thank you both so much for this. And I'm going to backtrack a little bit. Feeling the Distance, Stewart's last poems, was a finalist in the New Mexico, Arizona Book Awards. Don't leave out that part, John. And then a winner for offerings for the journal.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Love those stickers. Given that this all goes back to Stewart, I'm going to open this with a little poem of Stewart's. This is, I think, the first poem he read to me when we first met, and it remains one of my favorites. He published Friend in 2011, and this is called Wilderness of Edges. A few feral flakes drift between houses, blustery skies, vigilant crow, the roar of traffic on York. To the west, the bugle of an unseen train. They talk about nature like she's a hermit, somewhere to go with deer or when we die. Dividing light from dark, this ridge line of snow on a single bough is the Continental Divide, the entire Back Range. So just to give a little more detail, Stewart actually started Heartlink in '93 as an offshoot of his counseling practice. And he saw it as a way to offer social good and community value in beautiful book form. He published about 140 books of clients up until his passing in 2019, and about 36 of his own that I think I have maybe all of them now with a lot of help from my friends. Mary Van Pelt specifically participated in my collection. At the time of his passing, we had this shared assumption that I would just sell the domain because I didn't have the technical skills that he did to continue Heartlink. And the skills that I did have were sales, years of sales, an art and design degree, 30 years of running an antique and custom commercial furniture business, which meant lots of listening and interpreting what I thought somebody really wanted, needed, was looking for. And that's really served me. So it took me about 1.5 years after his passing. And at that point, my angels just started lining up. And a friend in San Francisco had been tasked with selling the domain name for me. And he just kind of didn't get around to it. And about 6 months later, we talked, and he asked me for the second time, why aren't you doing this? You could, it's the schmoozy part that matters. You can hire somebody to do the tech work. Enter Denise Weaver Ross, one of my major heroes. And I don't know if it was 1 day or 2 days after John and I had this conversation, I said, let me think about it. She posted on Facebook, I've been doing cover design and book layout for 30 years, and I really want to do more of it.
Yeah.
So I reached out and said, okay, Denise, let's talk. So she partnered with me doing all of that for the first couple of years.
And I just wanted to add, I just wanted to add that she does a lot of that work for us as well. So.
Exactly. So I had experienced her work in these books of Stewart's up close. And then I had another sort of an epiphany where I listened yet again to my sister mentor, Kim Webb in San Francisco, who may be here at some point. And she's done this kind of work for a gazillion years, and connects the dots with people's skills and people who need those skills. And she kept saying to me, you can learn InDesign, you can do it. And I just thought she was nuts for a long time. And all of a sudden it made perfect sense. And I thought it was fascinating. And I still can't explain why, but here we are. So she has wrenched me through a lot of that learning curve. And then Ann Lowe, who's local to Silver City, has also done a lot of coaching with me on that. And I've had all kinds of great material that has fueled this. This is the first book I did just as my demo project, just to see that I could get all my ducks in a row. And I managed the artwork for Range Cafes in Albuquerque for about 5 years. And so I have this whole stable of fabulous artists all over the place, largely in New Mexico. And so this is Alexandra Aldridge, who's a Santa Fe artist. And Denise did a beautiful sort of half-tone repeat of that image several times in the book. And that's the kind of beautiful interior that I just love. So I'm having a great time doing that kind of thing now. Mike Ball is one of my readers, and these are his photographs as well as his poems. And then he gave me little bonus things like the little bees. So we used the little bees. So I love just playing with that kind of design thing. And I'll wave a few more books at you. I can use, your photograph for a cover or something that just makes sense to me. This is a poet, psychologist, therapist in the Denver area, and it's a conversation, hypothetical, between the therapist and the patient for those who wonder what therapy is like. So we did this in a hardback version as well as a paperback and an ebook. And again, somebody else's photograph that became the cover. And a lot of these things come with their own synergy. I found this image, and this is one of Maggie's books. Stuart published several for her, and then she and I did this one, and we're actually about to embark on a larger project that'll reveal itself over the next who knows how long. But she, in fact, has an icon of this image, which I didn't know when it came to me for the cover. So that kind of stuff is just, it happens over and over and over. This is, I would say, an alternative to traditional publishing, more collaborative, with me divining who you are and what your book wants to be. And I liken it to a birthing process. It doesn't usually take that long. There are always those contingencies, and working with KDP is something that I personally think you want an advocate. You don't want to deal with them yourself. It's fascinating and mysterious, and I learn something new every time I talk to somebody there. I give you personal attention, sometimes at odd hours, in a way that you are not going to get with a traditional publishing setup. We don't charge royalties, and we give you all kinds of input about what the possibilities are. You get homework, things that make a lot of people squirm, like give me a bio. And that's one of the biggest hurdles for a lot of people, I've realized. That and asking others to write you a cover review. So I have a template for that. I have a list back here in the ethers of people that I think would be a good fit with your book, and they would appreciate your writing, and let's ask them. Let's see. There's all the minutia like industry standards that you get. I'm happy to do an initial consultation if you want to just get together live, if we're in the neighborhood, or via Zoom, and just talk about what you're thinking for a book. If you already have something, have you had it edited? We go through all that kind of thing. And then ultimately you get a final product on Amazon with minimally a huge long list of things that you can do to promote. And later this week, I should have a proposal for a marketing adjunct to Heartland.
Great.
That will offer SEO, search engine optimization, and social media that some of us older people don't know all of those things to do. And so that'll be a possibility. If you want somebody to work with you this closely on creating your book and give you some more marketing help, that hopefully is going to be a possibility coming up there.
Terrific. And I'm sure Jules probably put your contact info, your website and so forth in the chat, and we can do that again.
I put the website link, but
yeah.
my contact stuff would be great too. So I'm going to start this off by a poem that I just love. It's not mine. It was by Jim Brown, and I don't even know Jim Brown. He was in the Men's Wellness anthology, and I just happen to love this poem. So this is called Rose's Kitchen. Jake the rake stopped by Rose's house to inquire about the gunshot he had heard early that morning. Found her in the kitchen, naked, except for her boots, and spattered with blood, a butcher knife in her fist, a deer's hind quarter on a plastic tarp on the floor, her eyes wild. She waved the knife at him. "Don't you stand there gawking," she spat. "Go get the rest of it out of the canyon." Backtracking the blood trail, he had no difficulty finding the carcass, rolling it into another tarp, slinging it over a broad shoulder, scrambling out of the canyon, smiled to himself, remembering her sanguinated 60-year-old body, Barbarella trim, leaning over a hunk of half-skinned venison on the kitchen floor. So with that segue into the Men's Wellness anthology, I'm going to pass the baton to Hank Blackwell. Hank was actually my first client, and I kept saying, I don't know if I'm ready to do this or not. And he was just like, yeah, we're going to do this. It'll be fine. And fast forward this 3 years later, we've done a number of projects together. Several of his books. There's one of those stickers again. And then he was one of the editors on the anthology. His background is one of those Renaissance guys that's done everything and successfully: jeweler, ballet dancer, writer, fire chief, emergency medical, tech rescue, blah, 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 blah. It goes on, and he manages to leave out some of the most dazzling ones. But also, informally, the poet laureate of Serafina, New Mexico. Take it away.
Thank you, Pamela. And thanks everybody for showing up for Pamela. When we met 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, whenever it was a journey for both of us. And without her, I wouldn't have these last 3 books. And also I would not have this delightful friendship. So that's much more important than the books. to me. So again, I'm most grateful for this remarkable human being. A couple of things really quickly. I've got 3 poems. They're all 40 pages long. I'll try to get through them real quickly. But when Pamela, this was the first book that Pamela helped me with. And it's interesting that this particular book, one thing that was kind of surprising and unexpected to me is 2 of the poems in that first book have now been there's been choral music written to 2 pieces out of that book, and so the Highlands University Choir has performed 2 of those poems in choral works, which was just something unexpected and wonderful for me to try to engage in. And it was, that never would have happened had I not called Pamela and said, I think I need some help, and then she agreed. And then I drove her crazy with my punctuation, and she still decided to help me get these books out. So that was the first one. And there's 2 more. I'll read from the men's anthology. I was the editor-in-chief for that one, and I had 2 other wonderful New Mexico poets, heavyweights, that helped me vet the poems. This was the 30th anniversary of the first men's anthology poetry book that we published in 31 years ago from when this book came out. And Michael Ball has some poetry in here too. So kudos, Michael, again. It's good to see you. And they're stunning poems, and just wonderful works. And the artwork is beautiful as well. Jules Nyquist and her husband have done a lot of illustrations for Men Live, a little easing that has been going for years and years. And so they did a lot of illustrations in this book. So let me start with the first poem, and this one again is one of Stuart's that Pamela was so generous to allow us to put in this anthology. And it's called The Unfinished Road. I must go, says the man, before my spirit dies. A road trip is born. He yearns for choices determined by weather, by watershed, and the flow of clouds descending into a mountain town. He will eat and pray and wink when he wants, though mindful not to add anything extra. The open road is so named, and nothing real can be dodged. Love, neither judging or invested, takes the reins of every wind, leads where it will. So you see, he's actually a follower, a devotee of change. He's straight out for the desert. He writes these things to remember. Talks of tests and treatments fade into a dusty sunset west of Van Horn. It's a choice on the road. The ways of the world have their demands, and so too the spirit. Wyoming or not, the sun comes and goes at the pleasure of its pulse. And time, that darling dream, loses its incremental edges at the persistence of beauty. A man writes an unfinished poem on the banks of a shifting river somewhere west of Steamboat Springs. Doubt keeps him clean, and all that is present has been chosen by love. That's Stuart's poem, which is an honor to be able to read. One other one that we'll read out of the anthology again, this is the piece called What I Hold. And this was one of my works that was put in this anthology. Heart wants for peace, sacred space, yearning for love to be my will. Orbits around sun more abbreviated. Time is of the essence. The days available for risk and wonder are now noticeably much fewer. Old heart, scarred by life's betrayals, refuses to capitulate. Wounded, it is wiser, and I more trusting, this gentle, loyal companion. Beauty found with pain in candlelit meeting places. Miles have warned me. Limitations now, the accumulation of earlier adventures. Now content to partner this soul in the choreography of life's current moments. Older, I have found respite in the honesty of observation. I do not have precious time to disappoint myself. Many dark nights, sorrow and pain leading me to wake. Grateful, though, for sunrise, birdsong, embrace of family and friend. All failures lead to here. The absence of malice and my shortcomings never once separated me from the heroism of my children. Again, that's the second book Pamela put together for me. She's a genius, as always. A year and a half later, given my really prematurely white hair, I'm only 27, but I decided to write a book on aging. And Pamela put this together for us. And she wanted me to read a particular piece out of here, and then I'll be done. And this one is called Ojos de Víboro. I met you when you were too old to beat your children. Aging now, you may only throw beer cans from Cadillacs into the Sonoran summer. Growing and knowing, I no longer bow before your stained hat hanging on the unworn wall. You could have had the same regard for your children as your saddle and your hat, as well as the tenacious mesquite. Again, many thanks and hugs to Pamela for all that she does for us and for her wonderful friendship and collaboration. So thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you. And our next reader is Mike Ball, who, as Hank mentioned, has a poem in the anthology, and then I just collaborated with Mike on this chapbook that also features a lot of his photographs. He refers to himself as a hick and urbanite. He has a background in writing a lot of business and tech things that most of us wouldn't understand, technical writing, engineering. He became a political blogger and podcaster. I'm sorry to have missed that phase. And then finally he got around to poetry, which he finds so much more interesting than all that tech stuff. Mike, what do you have for us?
Oh, well, I think I'll go with those two that you suggested. Well, I would like to say up front that I was whining to Billy Brown running Fixed and Free and say that, I'm looking at these chapbooks and they're pretty terrible. What do I have to do to get one published? And he said, talk to Pamela Williams. She can make it happen. And she did. So I got to say, if you can't get your books published and you don't know what to do, talk to Pamela Williams, and she can make things happen. So I gotta say that. All right. Yeah, I spent a lot of time in West Virginia and Virginia. My senator here is Elizabeth Warren, and she and I, she was on one of my podcast guests, and I had to laugh with her because we were both born in Oklahoma, and nobody knows what Oklahoma is about. They know Texas, they know California, but they don't know Oklahoma. And she called herself an elite hick. So I got to say, she's right and I'm right. So I'll go with a couple that Pamela chose. One from my youth and one from my childhood. And Take the Clothes. Ah, my naughty great uncle, alone among 8 siblings and spouses, in not keeping his trousers zipped. That would be the 7th commandment. The necrology reports he died at home. The coroner would dispute that. Sudden death in the upbeat, atop a mistress is too exotic for our staid family. The missus shielded his honor, and kept his corpse close, mingling under a shared tombstone 30 years later. Passion for the German war bride faded to the quotidian, then betrayal dissolved with him in the ground. When the box of 14 ritzy shirts came to my steps by surprise, I knew who to ask. His niece, my mother, why these came to me. My mother did not sigh often, yet she was skilled at it and said, Gertie did not want to keep his clothes, shirts he might have worn with her. She still would not throw parts of him away. Take the damn shirts and write a thank you note, then do whatever you want with them. She will never mention the shirts again. She has cleared those bureau drawers and her mind. I heard our wants are trivial, weighed against what another needs. And on a little bit lighter note, I can recall from my youth, a bathtub full of women's underwear. It was everywhere. Lingerie jungle. Alas, when station wagons roamed and ruled the roads, a lad in the house of estrogen adapts day to day to the ways of females. It lacks his lingerie jungle hero. Base of tub and shower, the bathroom, really women's unmentionables club. There's the boy by labors to wash himself. Showers mean moving, folding, and stacking slippery items, none of his business. Bushwhack that white and ivory forest, towel rods, curtain tubes, overhead dainties, folding wooden towel rack in the bathtub.
I'm totally into Bonnie's mint.
Where are women to belong to these clothes? Gammon pudenda coverings, stockings, girdles, rosaries, underpants, slips and more, hanging empty without legs, butts and breasts. This jungle has no slithering vipers, no simians sit on limbs in ambush, rather girdles instead of turtles, the bras instead of zebras, tan hose, not white rhinos. Nothing hanging as a vine for Tarzan. Where is that ape man to swing on nylons? He cannot hear Tarzan's Doppler effect bellowing along his jungle journey. Oh, and before I go, I'd like to say hello to Ramona Galt, a friend of mine from way, way back, who joined us. I don't know that she's coming in from Seattle or New Mexico. She lives in both. So hello to Ramona. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. It's fun to be here. Pamela, Mike and I were Greek students in college many moons ago.
Only 6 semesters.
Okay, Pamela, unmute for the next here.
And anyone who's not speaking should make sure you're muted as well. Thank you. Yes, Pamela.
So our next reader is Telma Laurentino, who I had a marvelous time with the creation of her book, which is a combination of poetry, field guide, and her photography. And she's a doctor of evolutionary biology. I need to be very succinct about this, I'm told. You should think of her as a scientist, a communicator, and an educator. The last time we Zoomed, she had a bunch of little skulls on the chest behind her, and she's teaching evolution to kids, which I think is a marvelous little sideline. But as an evolutionary biologist, she studies how species evolve and adapt to environmental change. And as a writer and educator, she focuses on the systemic sociological issues and how they shape our relationships with each other and with nature, which is just dazzling to me. Go for it, Telma. Thanks for being here. She's, by the way, Zooming from Portugal at this time in the middle of the night.
Thank you, Pamela, and thank you everyone for being here. It was mutual, the pleasure of working on this with Pamela, and I dare say that without Pamela there would be no love letter from the forest. I had decided that there was not going to be a book. I put the manuscript in the drawer, and then one day while working in the deserts, I was studying lizards in New Mexico, and I bumped into Kathy Eisen, which is another author from Mercury Heartlink, and we exchanged stories, and she said, you should go to Pamela. So there's this common thread where people go to Pamela and beautiful things happen. So I see this book as first of all, messages from the forest that just decided that I should be the conduit for them to come into the world. And it's also a community creation with Pamela, Kathy, and all the other species that are portrayed in it. So I'm going to read you one of the stories. So it's autobiographic. It has a lot of my reflections. It's my heart field book. When I go into the field to the research, I take my scientific, boring field book. And then this has been my heart notebook. And I'm going to tell you one of the moments that has changed my life that happened in the tropical forest in Uganda. On one of the many unforgettable days in the entrails of the tropical rainforest, I was measuring lianas and was stopped in my tracks by the vision of a silhouette some 10 meters away, a female chimpanzee with her young on her back, gently walking by. I quietly drew my colleague's attention, and we all observed in silent awe. Within seconds, we hear more movement in our direction from the left, and we could see the vegetation moving, but no animals were in sight. Suddenly, a chimp vocalizes close by, maybe 3 meters away to our right, and the group response of about 20 voices echoes from all around us. We were in the middle of a passing chimp group, and we did not even see or hear them coming. Fascinating, terrifying. All of a sudden, we hear alarm calls of a fighting scene between 2 adult males. They run in our direction, up the branches over our heads, and grab at each other in great agitation. It was intense. As they stood 2 meters above our heads, I started trembling. I felt like I was intruding into someone's home and meddling in their family's affairs, afraid the chaos was going to fall on us, quite literally. We knew to stay quiet and calm in our spot, so we did, but damn, you could see us sweat. To our relief, we heard human voices, and the local researchers and chimp watchers appeared between the trees. They smiled at our obvious fear and invited us to join and observe the chimp group. The researchers know the individuals by name and even by the shapes of their butts. After some exchange of knowledge, we simply laid down on the forest trail underneath the tree where the chimps were going on with their daily lives. After hours of watching them, a couple of chimps began mating on the branch just above me. And all I'm going to say about that is, if you are ever in that position, it's okay to be in awe and fascination about life, but maybe move. Alternatively, do not move, and you will make the primatologist howl with laughter, which is probably worth having chimpanzee sperm fall on you. You decide. Some of the chimps got down from the main tree, and one of the researchers called us to observe a mother with her 2 toddlers. The mother was languidly lying down with kind eyes, while the energetic rascal kids jumped around, playing with each other, going too high on the tree, and then calling the mother for help, jumping from the liana to the mother, who tried very unsuccessfully to keep them calm and close to her. I couldn't help but smile and think that I had seen that exact same scene so many times. On the beach, in a park, I had seen those eyes, those gestures, that tenderness and that cheekiness in so many mothers and so many kids. It was so heartwarming to meet our evolutionary kin so up close, to witness such intimate moments. I was so grateful for the experience, but there was also something new sparkling in my heart, and I could still not define it by the end of that day. It would take 3 more days until the chimps surprised us again while we were measuring lianas in a deep forest plot. This time they were much closer, but so were the researchers. They instructed us to sit and wait while the chimps passed by, centimeters away from us, and to not look them directly in the eyes if they approached us. I was sitting by a big fallen tree branch, distracted by the sight of a golden carpenter ant, when a set of black knuckles came into sight. I instinctively followed the arm up and locked eyes with the female chimp. It lasted seconds, but it felt eternal. She, close-mouthed, made a sound from her throat, like a short and guttural. I immediately looked down, anxious and regretful about being careless, apologizing to the chimp in my mind, but also feeling my chest full of an overwhelming emotion. After I bowed my head as fast as I could, she held her stance for some more seconds and resumed then her march. I watched her feet pass by, go over the fallen tree branch between us, and heard her disappear into the foliage to my right. What was this in my chest? It felt like an energy rush, but not quite. It felt like expansion in a pleasant way. I had truly met my closest kin. Looking into her eyes, realizing that they were just like my eyes, the same light, the same deep language, being immediately and unavoidably humbled by her composed yet powerful threat, her demand for respect in her own home, being separated by a mere branch, exactly, by a mere branching event in the tree of life. There were about 8 million years separating us, different evolutionary paths, but in that moment, there was absolutely nothing. That was what made my chest expand. It was not my lungs, it was my love, my wonder for biodiversity, for evolution, for life. I was the chimp. It was so easy to feel now, but not just that. I was the liana too. I was the golden carpenter ant and the scute bugs. I was the sapling at my feet, defying the odds of survival. I was the strangler fig, taking up her space. I was the forest, and the forest was me. All of life was more clearly than ever, so deeply connected. My chest was full because I was experiencing something that I was sure about, that I dedicated my life to studying, but had never felt that deeply before. I was one branch in the tree of life, connected to all others by ancestry. The whole surrounding forest and I were kin, testimonies of life's endless creativity, and what could be more beautiful, what could be more lovable. And this is an important moment because I've been feeling all these things in my head, and it's the first time that I have this whole body knowledge of what it means to be part of nature. And so the love letter from the forest is mainly an invitation to refine that beauty. And it's where me and Pamela met, was in that activism to promote the connection back into nature. But it's not only about the beauty and belonging to beauty, it's also about living in the complexity and the paradoxical existence of being part of beauty, but also being part of the harm that is done to biodiversity, living within a system that hurts our ecosystems, while also being part of the beauty of those ecosystems. So to honor that and to invite you into this reconnection to the wild that is in you too, I will leave you with a poem. And I invite you to listen that the beauty that is at the surface, but also the deepest calling to this relationship of reciprocity and accountability between us and the ecosystems that surround us. So this poem is called There. As you walk through the changing forest, dare to immerse yourself fully. As you feel the struggling soil with bare feet, dare to write poetry about it. Smell the petrichor, dare to stand in the rain. Let the gum rock rose intoxicate you, dare to succumb to its fragrance. Listen to the song of the Paris's frog, dare to dance to its rhythm. Watch the gray shrike as it watches you, dare to bow before their regality. Look at the snake, dead on the path, dare to mourn it as family. Find the mushroom between roots, dare to smile as you touch it. Watch the beetle getting drunk on pollen and dare to laugh with joy. Eat the queen's flowers that belong to no one, dare to say grace for the sweetness. Witness the gecko hunting at night, dare to surrender to the thrill. Notice the camouflaged spider, dare to praise their feet. As you return your loner walking stick to the wild, dare to fiercely love it all. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Telma. God, what a beautiful challenge. Dare you all. So our next reader is Mark Fleisher, who several of you in this area may know pretty well. Mark was an Air Force combat reporter in Vietnam and has done all kinds of media and writing since then. And I swear, every time I look at Facebook, he's got something new submitted someplace new all over the world. I don't know anybody else that's so broadly geographically published. So Mark and I met through Stuart. Stuart published a number of Mark's books, and though he keeps threatening me that he's done, we've done a couple of books together, and I haven't named you lately, so we'll see. I appreciate the ongoing opportunity to share you with Stuart in sharing your work. Thanks, Mark.
We actually first met when Stuart and John Roche put together that little train trip from the range in Bernalillo up to Santa Fe.
Right, right.
Which was about, I don't know, 2015 or something like that.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I've done 3 books, or I did 3 books with Stuart. And unfortunately, as we know, he left us. And I got an idea for a 4th book. And I either emailed or called Pamela, left a message, and said, I'm thinking of another book. I'd like you to do it. Think about it, let me know. She called me back in 5 minutes. True story. And she said, yeah, let's do it. So my first poem is from my 5th book, which, much to my surprise, was a finalist for the New Mexico, Arizona book co-op prize, if you will. And it's called My Favorite Time. I prefer darkness when I am not blinded by the light, nor bombarded by distractions, laying siege to eyes, ears, minds. My eyes remain closed, yet I can see clearly in the darkness, past, present, and through the mist, even the future, or what I wish it to be. An orphan line gains entry, soon united with siblings, as a poem takes shape, then emerges at my favorite time, before morning arrives. Okay. Second poem is from my fourth book, which the first one that Pamela did. And Pamela, do you remember the back and forth with the cover? You sent me a photo and you said, "How's this for the cover?" And it was like a Roman statue, standing like that. And, something you'd see in the Metropolitan Museum of Art or someplace like that. And I said, Pamela, that is not me. And we finally came upon this cover, which a lot of people think that is me. It is not me. The one on the back cover is me in Vietnam. And somebody said, "Oh, you look so young." And I said, "Yes, because I was." And this is a kind of a lighter poem. It's called The Great Conjunction. The Great Conjunction, they call this meeting. I, Saturn, say it is Jupiter, my prodigal son, returning for the Saturnalia, the mid-December festival of too much drinking, too much eating, singing, and general carousing. My son Jupiter grew to be the biggest boy on the block they call our solar system, sporting an impressive resume as the god of the sky, the god of thunder, even the king of the gods. I, his father, a not so simple farmer, for by careful and wise plantings, I have amassed great wealth. And though I am older, slower than you, dear Jupiter, I can still run rings around you any day of the week. Thank you.
So you do have an appreciation of the classics, despite your disapproval of my classic statuary. Thank you, Mark. That was lovely, as always.
Thank you.
Our last reader of Heartlink clients and dearest friends, and this is Maggie Petton, who was Stuart's soul sister, which they both took very, very seriously. And Maggie was actually here with us at the time of Stuart's passing. She's peripherally done some work as a death doula, and I couldn't have done that process without her. She's a fascinating writer to me, as well as a poet. She's authored several volumes of historical fiction, and her novels are consistently about the struggles of disenfranchised women throughout history. So it's just a marvelous arena to explore these women of strength, courage, determination, and her poetry is that kind of window into her soul and who she is too. She did a number of books with Stuart, and then the one I waved at you a little while ago with the icon is the one that we did most recently. And then we are just about to launch a major project.
Huge.
Say a little more about that. I don't want to give anything away. There's lots of moving parts.
There are indeed lots of moving parts, and I'm glad to be doing it with you, Pamela. I join with everybody else whom you've worked with here in giving you accolades for the way you work and how easy you are to work with. And I know you and I both feel very strongly that Stuart was looking over our shoulders when you did this book for me. And as far as poetry, I don't really, I'm humbled by everything I've heard tonight. You people are amazing. And I don't really think of myself as a poet, but when the words come, you write them down. And if you have somebody like Stuart or Pamela willing to publish them, you give it a shot and you throw it out there. So that's what I'm doing tonight, I guess. Pamela picked a couple of my poems from the book that she did with me. Unlike, I think it was Hank who went first, who said she struggles with your punctuation. I have none, so I don't know if that makes her job harder or easier, but I never use punctuation, so there's that. The first poem I'm going to read is Fading. My words were used like weapons to hurt and maim. They spewed from my mouth, angry swords. My words were used in love to caress and comfort, lifting and helping in times of need. Now they spill from my brain before they can reach my mouth. This next one that Pamela picked, I actually wrote for a young friend who committed suicide. It's called Her Season. Winter curled its fingers around her summer heart, squeezing the light from her again. It shrouded her in darkness, too much, too often, too heavy. As the dog day drew close, she was chilled to the bone and refused to face the cold again. So she chose the warmth of her own season. Thank you, everybody. It's been really great to hear all of your work. I'm overwhelmed.
Thank you for that beautiful piece, Maggie. So I'm loading the open mic a little bit with a couple more people of my choice. Do you want to run with this, John?
Yes, that sounds good. I was wondering if, before we get started, if Jules had anything she wanted to say before we move to the open mic. I was just really loved the readers and the whole explanation of the history and goals of Mercury Heartlink, and you're a treasure not just at Silver City but really to the whole Southwest. So thank you so much. Jules, any comments before we move into the open mic?
Well, just thank you, Pamela. As a friend, I remember we had when you were at the range, and we had those fun readings in the back room for the poets. And you've done, I really appreciated how you mentioned your art and your design background and your antique background, and that you really listen to people. And we've referred a lot of poets to you as well. So I encourage poets and writers to come to Pamela for publishing. And you could just say your website again for the recording, and then we'll have I think we have Bob and Lynne and Janet that we're going to record as well.
Yes, we'll leave that on for Bob Weber. We have three more Mercury Heartlink poets who are going to read a poem each. And the first is Bob Weber from Albuquerque. Bob, would you care to?
Yeah, and anything else you'd like to say, Pamela, before we?
Oh, sorry to cut you off, Pamela.
No, that's okay. A friend just pointed out to me in the chat that some people were wishing they could applaud all of this wonderment together.
Let's do it.
Everybody's muted
And do a quick applause.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yes. Thank you.
It's such great juice to be in. Thank you all.
Okay.
I'm going to find Bob and spotlight him. So
yeah, now we'll spotlight Bob Weber. Hey, Bob.
Hi, everybody.
Hold on just 1 second. I got to find you here. Okay. There we go. All right.
Yeah,
And everybody please mute themselves as well again.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I got a haircut today just for this. I wanted you to know. I got connected to Pamela through that great poetry impresario, Billy Brown, who recommended her. And it was a wonderful connection for me because Pamela was not only my publisher, she was my editor, and she's a pretty damn good editor too. Okay. This is my book, Poems from the Rainbow's Bow. And I should tell you, Pamela, I don't know if I told you yet, but this book has been selected by the City of Cambridge Book Club as their poetry selection for the year. And this coming weekend, I'm going to go to Cambridge to be their poetry in resident person. And so let me read from the book here. I like to personify nature, fire, wind, whatever. And I also like to time travel. And these were modes of expression that Pamela encouraged me in. So this is a poem called My Name is Fire. My name is Fire. I'm very promiscuous. I like to mate with many things. Over time, my favorite has been wood. My father lightning will send me down to trees where I merge with them, consume them in the heat of my passion. But I sometimes let hominid humans think they have domesticated me. First, they tried to harvest me from Father Lightning strikes and my natural fires by trying to keep me alive in coals, by offering me new wood. Then they would carry my hot coals from place to place to give me rebirth. Later, they tried to create me with flint strikes and fire drills. Always their goal was to control the place and size of my passionate matings, as they do with their rock-lined campfires. Still later, they found success in mating me with coal, where I provided heat and light and power. For a brief interlude, I love to mate with whale oil because it casts a beautiful, warm glow of light without much smoke. My enemy is water. How I hate water. It extinguishes my arousal. But I must admit that over a time of growth, it gives me wood, peat, coal, and oil. Air is my friend. When it is dry, when it is blowing, I move readily from one passionate embrace and conquest to another. Earth itself is the backdrop of all these events. So earth, air, water, and fire, we are ultimate partners in my more showy, passionate dances. But this despicable species, sapiens, is always trying to domesticate me. One of its strangest attempts is cooking. They mate me with food and call it good. They base whole industries on this mating of my fire passion and their food. Sometimes this debasement of me is intolerable. What could be more humiliating than to confine me to a campfire, bring in their children, and require me to mate with a chocolate and gooey marshmallow concoction called s'mores? An ultimate indignity. But I tell you, I shout to you, I will not be contained. I will not be domesticated. I will escape. I will rise again. I will rise again with my child named Nuclear. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Bob, and thank you and congratulations on your award from Cambridge. That's terrific. So yeah. Some more. Our next reader is, I'll probably mispronounce your name, Lynne Zotalis. And you are, I believe, in Silver City. So
Yes. Okay. Am I unmuted now?
you are. Mhm.
Okay. Yes. And I just want to say how everyone has loaded Pamela with these accolades about her publishing, and I parrot that too, but I want to say that Pamela is my dearest friend here in Silver City. So that's the connection that we have, and I'm so fortunate. She was one of the poets along with me that did Upward Spiral, and four of us came together to do this anthology, and it was a labor of love. And I'm going to read a poem from this anthology called Terra Firma Antiquity. I told him to bring me some dirt. Dirt? He asked. Terra firma, Grecian dirt, created from dust of the earth. Scripture or hearsay? To dirt we return, dust to dust. I asked him for dirt. Grandpa Aristides Pontelli Zotalis was born in the village Kramasti in northern Greece. Jason made the pilgrimage his grandpa never could, back to the homeland, land. The profusion of relatives treasuring, living their heritage, ancestry intact and revered dating to the 12th century BC, their land. He shared a picture of the door of the house his grandpa lived in. I asked Jason Aristides Zotalis to bring me some dirt. He got it, the symbolism, sending me a picture of an Uncle Zotalis scooping dirt into a container. I don't think I will ever go there, only being married to it. Jason, Jonathan, Joy, and Alexis Zotalis own the blood roots, marrow from Greek dirt, coursing through arteries. Humans and earth form an intimate, crucial bond, soil, containing massive amounts of DNA. Scientists can figure out ancient strains from modern ones in the land so alive with history's rich genetic code. Humus, the Latin word for earth and soil, is the same root word for human. Soil closely connected to culture and civilization of particular ethnic groups living in a given place, and recording how the collapse of soil is directly linked to the breakdown of culture, livelihood, and health. I do not know what I will do with my dirt. Smell it, slide my fingers into it, listen. In time, it will tell me where it needs to be. In time.
Thank you, Lynn. That's a fascinating journey.
You're welcome.
Lineage, yeah. Next up from Corrales, New Mexico, just outside Albuquerque, is a good friend, Janet Ruth. Yeah.
Thank you, John. I am one of the authors who got the pleasure of working with Stuart, and I've gotten to know Pamela since then. And Stuart helped me put together this book called Feathered Dreams, Celebrating Birds in Poems, Stories, and Images. And it includes some stories, it includes poems, includes photography, and some of my pen and ink drawings, all about birds. And for those, I know a lot of you, some of you I don't know, I'm a retired research ornithologist. And I am very happy to be part of this group to celebrate Mercury Heartlink. It was my first book. It, as you could see from the little sticker, was also a finalist for the New Mexico Arizona Book Awards. And I'm pleased to follow Telma's reading. And Telma, it was wonderful to hear you read. One of the things I often say about my poems is that they're all of the things that I saw, that I see, that don't fit into my scientific papers. And so it's a wonderful other way of seeing the world. And for that reason, I'm going to read a poem. Wasn't the one I was thinking I was going to read, but having heard Telma, I'm going to read this one. It's not one that I often read out of the book. And it's called What I Know, and it's in 3 short parts. What I Know. 1, an insect-like rattle, a ticking, hissing whisper in the grass, a covert warble. Tiny, cryptic feathered banjo player picks scales with a bit of improvisation. A recital for panther-spotted grasshoppers, black-tailed jackrabbits, javelina, pronghorn, secretive mate, and me. He sings from feathery flag of cane bluestem that nods above last year's grass clump, leaves cured gold with cinnamon stripes by the sun. A crackling quiver armed with new green arrows fletched in the first July monsoon downpour. He repeats his song, listens to nearby call and response, crouches forward, flicks a single wing, a kind of fluttering challenge. I know this grasshopper sparrow. D32. Hot pink and black plastic bands on right leg, light blue and silver on left. His nest, beneath a tangled grassy dome of Sidotes grama, cradles 4 brown speckled eggs. One is pipping. Its territory encompasses mesquite, upon whose spines loggerhead shrike has impaled a fence lizard, cholla twisting beneath its crown of thorns, a helix of rusted barbed wire, a kingdom of grass. 2, there are things recorded for science, length of wing and beak, weight, number of eggs, and when they hatch. But there are worlds to be known that science cannot tell. Science, my career, documentation of a sparrow's life, real, true, but only part of the truth. Science is only the body, skin and feathers, flesh and bones. The rest is spirit and soul, a mystery for which science has no words. 3, mysteries shimmer beneath a blazing sun, perhaps a mirage, perhaps a dream. How deciphered? What are the clues? What would I ask of a grasshopper sparrow? What are the words to your chittering song? How did you clothe yourself in colors of sun-cured grass, streaked with tanglehead's deep chestnut, Tobosa's silver gray, and Sakatone's tawny tassels, rabbit brush's secret lemon yellow at corner of eye and bend of wing? What shines behind your bright dark eyes? Do you share the cryptic's code with your mate deep in the grass? Does your heart break when the coach whip flows away with the last of your nestlings? Looking east as rose ribbons foretell the sun's resurrection, west as monsoon clouds climb high above the Santaritas. Do you pray? Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. And Feathered Dreams is a book always worth returning to. So,
Thank you, John.
We actually have one more terrific poet from Mercury Heartlink Press, and he lives in Colorado, Greg Seth Harris. Seth, I was wondering if you would come on next.
Absolutely. I very clearly remember first meeting Stuart. He was performing at a poetry performance poetry festival that happened in Salida for several years, called Sparrows, and he was on stage reciting poems behind musicians, and I immediately recognized that we were kindred spirits, and we became very, very close friends. He did live in Denver for a while and helped me with a lot of projects, and when I was finally ready to put my book together, it's called The Black Odyssey. He found the artwork, wonderful artwork, and helped me put it together. I'm just going to read one poem from it. It's titled, what is it titled? Shadow of Venus. Sea spouts jet mist pushing upward out of rock. Sunshine suckles your milky shoulders. Volcanoes rumble but won't erupt. Still, the way you wear your day determines the dream's look. A bleeding heart rattles against cold cage, bold yet sunken like ships whose full moon lonely lips alone break the undulating surface where surf, salt, indecision drift. The shadow of Venus casts a wide net. Fishermen dream of abandoning their fishes. They rock to and fro, the wet bottoms of their boat sloshing in rhythm to their lack of understanding, with not even stars to guide them, just the heartbeat of the naked soul. The shadow of Venus looms in pink puffed clouds, Persephone cleaning house, setting table. Diana weeding her tangled wilderness while Athena half listens to lieutenants in heated conversation. Rocking on her patient porch, she resumes her reading, now and then gazing outward, now and then peering 1,000 miles inward. When the lieutenants leave, Ceres chimes from a full raised window. Chairs scrape, pans rattle, voices clang, smiles are passed from plate to plate, each aroma a moment to be savored. Vesta lights her fire in the hearth while Hera, at the head of her table, hums melodiously as she braids the moonlight that bounces across the black inky bay where raft-born Odysseus stares at a lighted window and the dark-haired figure haloed in its homely frame.
Thank you. Thank you.
And both Stuart and Pamela, wonderful people, besides being great editors and promoters. So I feel blessed to know them both.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Same to you, Seth. And I have a question. This is classic Stuart synergy. I swear it was just 2 days ago, my OneDrive on my computer keeps showing me memories from this day. And this computer has a compilation of an old computer of mine and Stuart's old computer. So I'm getting to see pictures of his that I never saw before. And just 2 days ago, this picture came up that oddly was labeled. Most of them are not. And it was him reading at Sparrows in Salida with the musicians that you could see a little bit of. When was that, do you think?
Oh God, it's
He looks young.
Yes. And for those of you who don't know me, I perform poetry behind music. That's my thing here in Denver. And so we immediately became good friends. I invited him to join my group when he came to Denver, so he would be on stage with me as well. And then he went on to do all these wonderful things in various parts of Colorado and then down in New Mexico. Really, he's been one of my closest friends.
I appreciate knowing that. Thank you for being part of this.
Thank you, everybody. I'm going to stop the recording now. But thank you, Pamela, for a wonderful Mercury Heartlink.
Yeah.